What's up, people? I am back for another video. I know originally I was supposed to do Deadpool 2, but I just didn't feel like doing a whole video on it, but I will give quick thoughts on it. To me, it's the weakest of the trilogy. It does not age well. I love the credit scenes, the scene where he shoots himself and like the scene where, he kills Barakapool, as I call it, from Origins, but everything else, Russell was annoying. I would have rather him just did more of a comic book accurate Domino than the Domino we got. I would have been fine with I think Zazie Beetz is her name. She was in the Joker film too. I would have rather them just did more. I would have been fine with her if they just did more comic accurate Domino. Give her like her actual look, not the fucking afro. Cable wasn't really done that great the more I think about it. I like Josh Brolin. I think I was more, because it was one of the better superhero films at the time, so I was like, okay, but it does not age well. Juggernaut was cool, but he's not in it that long. It's not a great film. The X-Force stuff was kind of funny, even with the Brad Pitt joke. Peter was good, but everything else, having to kill off like Vanessa was kind of dumb, even though it also, you think about it, this film doesn't really matter. You can just kind of watch 1 and 3. Hot take. You just kind of, the way this one ends, it's almost like retcons. It's a retcon where it doesn't even happen. So you don't necessarily need to watch this one. I almost feel like you could just watch the first one and the third one. I think this one just does not hold up as a film. It has some good moments in it, but to me, it's not a great film. I do like, Colossus in it, and I like some stuff in it, but it it's not great. So if I really go back to the Deadpool movies, it really just be 1 and then Wolverine, or Deadpool 3. That's really it. I don't think I'd watch 2 that much. I don't think I'd watch 2 again. If I wanted to watch some from 2, maybe the Juggernaut scene, but that's kind of it. I just don't think that Russell kid ruins it. It's like if they maybe try to make him more likable, it could have worked, but they didn't. He was fucking annoying. I just was like, can you kill this fucking fat fucking kid? I hate it. I was just so over it with him. I was, and also just didn't think the kid actor or whoever they got was good, so it just didn't help either. So the scene, I think it's even worse when the scene he's dying, and you have the kid trying to be all like emotional. It just did not work for me. I was like, oh my god, stop! You're not working for me. You're not trying. You're coming off forced. Yeah. No. There's some moments in the movie, but like I said, I don't think I'm ever going to watch it again. I really think I'm just going to stick to the first one and the third one, and that is it. So, anyway, before we get into that, let's get into the actual point of the video. Okay, really quick, I guess I'll give that movie like a 6 out of 10, maybe 5.5 out of 10. More like a 5.5, because I think the more I think about it, just some of the way they did the time travel stuff was weak. I think they could have did Cable a bit more. And it wasn't necessarily Josh Brolin. I think he tries, but I just feel like they should have they maybe should have set him up more, or they should have I didn't like the whole wannabe Terminator feel they were trying to go for, where he's trying to chase him so Deadpool has to protect. I didn't need that angle. He should have came for a different reason. Also, the lack of an overarching villain, I think, hurt the movie. Besides the one random guy you meet at this I guess mental institution for mutants. That's the only somewhat bad guy, and I guess Juggernaut, but you don't really have a bad guy. I think that's fundamentally the problem too. There's no overarching bad guy. You don't really explore Cable's family being killed, really. I think Josh Brolin looks the part, and I think he could have played it better if he was better written, but he doesn't have much to do. I do like some of his chemistry with Deadpool, so it's not a full-on loss, and I'll admit I liked him more at the time, but I think I was just more forgiving. And I'll be honest, this is a while since I've seen this movie. Like, so I think rewatching it recently, I only saw the ending, so it wasn't uber bad. But when I rewatched it all the way through, it's like, yeah, this is not great. I won't say this is terrible, but it's not great. You can honestly skip it. I think you can just watch 1 and 3 and just be good. You don't really need to watch this one. I mean, I guess the only reason would be just to, if you want to watch the whole thing. And I do like the post-credit scenes, but that's it. So, anyway, the real point of the video today's video is I am going to be talking about why I became a wrestling fan again. Like, well, I had, always been a wrestling fan. I stopped watching as a kid during the kind of, I guess this would have been during the Ruthless Aggression era. Because, like, at the time I was like, oh, where's Austin and Rock? And I was an Austin Rock mark at that time as a kid. So it's like, they were gone. But then it was like, I fucking missed out because the Ruthless Aggression era was great. And maybe I'll do a video like that. Maybe sometime maybe sometime this week about why, I think the Ruthless Aggression era is underrated. Because I missed out on that, I stopped watching wrestling for a while, for pretty much until, like, I would say 2008 is when I started watching it. And it was funny because I started watching again, partially was because of YouTube. Because I started watching YouTube in 2007. So at the time, YouTube was the wild, wild west, obviously. So there was no, like, you could just you could just watch any pay-per-view. Now, you can't really just find you can't find full pay-per-views on YouTube. You rarely will be lucky to find a match because YouTube dings it all the time. But back in 2007, you could watch whole pay-per-views. I was starting to watch, like, Attitude Era clips and stuff, going, like, back in time. But then it was like crack almost again for me. It was like, oh my God, man, just keep going. I even started going into, like, some of the Ruthless Aggression Era stuff, and then slowly just some in me, like, I guess late 2007 going into early 2008, I was like, you know what, I want to be a fan again. Or, I wanted to start watching again. So that's when I started watching, like, the current thing at the time. So at the time, Randy Orton was, like, this was the Age of Orton era. Leading up to WrestleMania 24 on the SmackDown side, Taker was feuding with Edge for the World Heavyweight title. So I started watching again, like, actively, and for a good, I guess you could say, decade. Because 2008 to about 2018, I was pretty much watching the current product. I was watching Raw, SmackDown. I didn't really get into NXT, and I'll get into, like, maybe in a different video why I didn't really get into NXT. I just wasn't into the smarky stuff. It never sold to me. And that'll be a different video. I don't want to talk about that too long. But, like, I was watching every week. It was like, some years it would get bad. I thought 2010 was kind of a weak year. But I was still watching. I even watched a little bit of TNA. I was kind of back into wrestling for a while. But then, we'll jump to 2018. I don't know. Like, 2017 was just kind of a weak year in WWE, especially in hindsight. So I think partially I was just kind of done watching weekly. So the funny thing was, I would still keep up with it on my, in clips. I just wasn't watching, like, every week on TV anymore. And going 2018, 2019, those years were bad. Just watching the clips. They weren't pushing anybody. This was the height when they were kind of catering to, like, the more smarky type of fan base at the time. So I felt like the show was just kind of directionless. So I'm like, you know what? I'm kind of happy I stopped watching. And what I did for a good while, I just watched old stuff. I would watch Attitude Era, a little bit of Golden Era, but mainly Attitude Era stuff for a while. And then 2023 happened. And everybody was hyping up Survivor Series. And, I didn't watch the show, but I watched the ending. And just seeing how people were, as much as I didn't like CM Punk at the time, just seeing like everybody, I'm like, okay, I'm going to try and tune in for Raw. So I was even seeing some of my friends be like, you know what, I want to check out Raw. So I was like, fuck, alright, I'll check out the show. I had kept up through clips, and there were some things I liked, but I hadn't watched all the way through in a long fucking time. And to finally sit down through an entire show, and I was like, you know what, this is good. And then now going into 2024, and actually now actively watching pay-per-views every week with my friends and just seeing like, you know what, the show's getting better. And I think why now we're into the point of the video, why it came back. And I think the big reason is it's much better writing. It's consistency now. They have dialed back on, like, for a while, one of the reasons I stopped watching was this catering. I know you're gonna see me say this a lot throughout this video. Smarks. They started catering to that kind of audience who just think it was always, what makes WWE great is only great matches. When I'm like, no, I didn't like. For a while, there were just 20-minute pointless matches with no fucking story every fucking week on Raw and SmackDown. A lot of times it would be the same matches too. You had these really bad storylines. Just. They didn't care. Vince was, y'all know, I love Vince. And, but, and yes, I know Vince is doing some weird shit. I'm just talking about, like, Vince as a character. I'm not talking about as a fucking person. But his writing at the time was just bad. It was, like, you had cuck storylines with, like, the Rusev. So it was just all around bad. What they were doing with Roman Reigns. And it just, for the product to be much better now, because they're actually now what they're doing. You don't just have pointless 20-minute matches now. And if you're going to do that, you at least have stories going into it. It feels like you're getting different matches every week. Yeah, the only negative SmackDown lately, I'll admit, has been pretty mid lately. But aside from that, I'm just talking about like the overall WWE. Raw has been consistent. Going in one of my most, like, the fact that WrestleMania this year, I'm not gonna lie, like, even just going into it, I was even tweeting this out at the time. This is like one of my most hyped WrestleManias in a long fucking time. It was. Because I'm gonna be honest, WrestleMania, I think the last WrestleMania I really hyped was maybe 28. Like, in that kind of sense, I think 28 was like the last kind of great WrestleMania of that time. Because I didn't really like 29. I didn't like 30 in the long term. 31 was decent, but it wasn't amazing. 32 sucked. 33 sucked. 34, like, you just kind of got a bunch of bad WrestleManias for a while. So to finally get a WrestleMania I was actually hyped for, the legitimate build, you're getting stars now. Triple H, as much as I love Triple H, for a while, he was trying to cater to that. I guess you wanted, in layman's terms, catering to the AEW fan base. But I think in the long term, AEW was good in the sense, I think it forced those kind of fans out of WWE. Because now Triple H is now able to make a legitimate show. He's building stars, different types of stars. Not just like the indie darlings that for a while, that's all we were focusing on. Every division feels like it matters for the most part. Every pay-per-view this year, just watching that I've seen, have all been good, largely. There's some mid ones, but SummerSlam was great. Storylines are progressing now. And I think this will be a different video. Maybe there might be a couple wrestling videos this week, because I do want to talk about why SmackDown has been mid lately, and I hate to say it. I guess I can go into a little bit of negatives, but I still have some issues with WWE like that one. SmackDown has not been good the last couple of months, really since WrestleMania. And I was hoping that maybe it just needs Roman and maybe they'll fix. Because I think the problem with how they did it this week is Roman comes back. It was cool seeing him beat out the bloodline, but I wanted to see him cut a promo. Hopefully next week we actually will get to see him talk because we need to see him cut a promo. Because, so like I still have some issues, but largely the product is much better now. I can actually watch every week. Like, there's been some mid shows, but there hasn't been like some straight up terrible shows for me yet. And I think why I've been coming back, it's better than Hollywood because WWE actually is catering to its audience for the most part. It's trying to give you what you want. They're pushing, right, at least right now, SummerSlam was pretty much a crowd pleaser. They're doing a lot what the crowd wanted. A lot of people wanted Gunther to be world champion. They made him world champion. A lot of people wanted Braun Breaker as Intercontinental Champion. He's an Intercontinental Champion. LA Knight being United States Champion. He's United States Champion now. Like, they're, for a while, even before that, obviously everyone wanted Cody Rhodes to be Roman. They did that. They've done everything pretty much mostly what the fans wanted. Yeah, you get some, I love WWE, but you'll get some dummies who will say some dumb shit, like with the whole Maxie Dupree situation because people were booing her. There were some wrestlers who got uber defensive and were kind of going at the fans. You get some dumb shit like that from time to time. But largely, they cater to their fan base. They're actually doing something that Hollywood's not doing right now. They're actually placating their fan base. And even in the bad years, WWE fans are vocal. You don't see, for the most part, you might see some dumb wrestlers, but largely you don't see most of the wrestlers just attack the fans the way you see Disney does. Or if they do it almost in character. I don't have a problem with that. If you're doing it in fucking character and you're a heel and you're attacking the fans, it makes sense. You're a heel. But you're getting storylines progressing. Because for a while, man, even like the years when I was still kind of watching, I didn't feel like storylines were progressing because they stopped caring about story after a while. They started catering to this. I'll just say AEW fan base for this. I don't want to keep saying smart, but fan base, and unfortunately, because of that, you get a lot of, they don't like storytelling. So a lot of it's more about crazy spots, and that's not what makes me a wrestling fan. I know a lot of people like to retroactively try to shit on the Attitude Era now because certain things, but no, there's a reason the Attitude Era and the Ruthless Era dominated because of the storytelling. You had long-term storytelling. I mean, just look at Vince Austin. There was no real, they wrestled a couple times, but their storyline wasn't about the actual fucking wrestling. It was their feud. One of the greatest feuds, Matt Hardy and Edge, was a real life thing, but it was their hatred of each other that made that feud, not their actual wrestling. To me, that is what wrestling is the storytelling, and I feel like I'm happy we're kind of getting back to that. So this is one of the reasons I'm back, and it just seems like WWE's finally getting it. We're progressing storylines, we're progressing feuds, we're progressing everything. Not everything's great, but largely, like, WWE, I feel like is in a good place right now. So I'm happy to be a wrestling fan again, because I've been wanting this, because wrestling has always been one of my favorite things, just because the storytelling. It's a unique way of telling stories. People who always fake and all this shit, it's stupid, because we could watch, like, DC stuff or Marvel stuff. We know that's fake, right? We know there's no real Iron Man or there's no real Superman, but we can watch those movies and not have a problem, but we can suspend our disbelief. But when it comes to wrestling, it's this different thing. No, it's the unique way they tell a story, not just the physicality, but just through the long term and the fact there is no, like, I don't like comparative sports, but in that kind of comparative sports here, sports have like there's they stop for a while, obviously. Like football stops after the Super Bowl, NBA stops after the finals, and then Major League stops after the fucking um I'll be honest, I can't think of the baseball one right now, but the fucking World Series. Sorry, I don't know why I couldn't think of it. I just blinked out for a second. The World Series. WWE doesn't stop after WrestleMania. They go after all year, even if you include live events. But I'm just talking about like just on screen right now. So that's why I've always loved wrestling. It's that unique. Like most others, in this case, I'm comparing to sports. Most other sports stop after a point. Like I mentioned, NBA stops after finals. NFL, the Super Bowl, World Series with baseball. They stop after those big events and they kind of take a couple of month break. Whereas WWE is all year. And the way you have to act and be physical is kind of the unique way I've always loved it. And I feel like currently where WWE is right now, they're going back to what makes me a wrestling fan. Great characters, great storytelling, long-term storytelling. Some of the Bloodline stories have been going on since 2020. Like 4 years now. And it's still good. Yeah, there's some points where it's getting a little boring, but now that Roman's back, I think the Bloodline story is going to definitely start progressing specifically. So, the CM Punk Drew McIntyre stuff right now, like, that's fucking great. That's long-term storytelling, where for a while they weren't even touching each other. It was just all verbal, and it was all fucking year. And I think it's going to go even into the fall. So that's, like, pretty much all year. And that's, like, that's one of the things that makes me a wrestling fan is that kind of storytelling. But anyways, guys, I don't want to go too long because I feel like I'm start saying the same thing. But I just wanted to talk about why I kind of came back to wrestling. And like I said, if I do wrestling videos, it'll be more like this. I'm not going to do Raw reviews just because now that, granted, we have missed a couple of weeks, but now that I'm doing the podcast, the Pin Down podcast, there's no point of me doing the Raw reviews on here. So, but I'll do more videos like this. Because, yeah, I do want to talk about why, like, SmackDown's been mid. Because it has been, really, since Roman left. And I hate to say, even when Roman came back this week, it wasn't a great show. So I want to go into that. So I'll talk about that maybe Thursday. Yeah, I'll talk about that Thursday. And then I'll try to do, because like, I know tomorrow is going to be another discussion video. I'm going to be talking about why I think Alien Romulus is going to be bad. So I do want to do a review on Tuesday, and then definitely Friday is going to be. I might go see Romulus in the theater. So if I go see it in the theater, that'll be Friday's review. But anyway, I'm happy to be a wrestling fan again. WWE's made it possible. AEW shit. So I'm not going to talk about AEW on here. I'll keep that on Pin Down. I don't really care to talk about AEW on my main channel. If I only talk about wrestling, it's going to be WWE. I'm just going to keep it real. That's going to be mainly WWE. But anyway. Tomorrow, like I said, Alien Romulus. I'll just kind of call it discussion, but I'm going to be honest. I just don't think it's going to be good. I just think everything I've seen, you might get some good Xenomorph stuff, but to me, that's not what made Alien Alien. Alien isn't just some creature feature where I can turn my brain off and I can just watch for the creature stuff. Alien was built off of great characters. The first two films. And it just have, like, I'm just going to be honest, these characters don't look good. And I will say it, I'm going to say it here, and then I'm going to say it tomorrow in more of a long form. I will acknowledge the film if the film is good. I said, I thought Bad Boys 4 was going to be bad. I thought Beverly Hills Cop 4 was going to be kind of mediocre. But they were both good. So, I can acknowledge when I'm wrong. And I kind of hope I'm wrong. But just everything I've seen, it just looks like an alien movie. Every alien movie I've fucking seen. And I fear if that's what it's going to be, I don't know, man. That's not going to save Alien from it. We needed to go different directions. So, but I'll talk about that more in longer form tomorrow. But, yeah. So, happy to be talking wrestling again on this channel. It gives me some stuff other. I love talking film, but I am a big wrestling fan too, so I do want to start integrating it back a little bit in this channel. So, and then sometimes it won't be every week where I do wrestling videos. Mainly, sometimes we mainly movie reviews still. I think that's gonna still largely dominate. So like Monday, like Tuesday and Wednesday will be reviews. So like it will still be mostly movie stuff. So just here and there I'll talk wrestling. But anyways, I'm gonna wrap up the video, guys. I'll talk to y'all tomorrow.